Imagine walking into a room and realizing that every decision people make, every opinion they hold, and every action they take is influenced by invisible forces they barely notice. Most people believe persuasion is about speaking louder, arguing harder, or presenting better facts. But true influence works very differently. It moves beneath the surface of conscious thought. It touches emotions before logic. It shapes perceptions before decisions are made. Reverse influence. 15 Laws of Human Persuasion reveals a powerful truth. People rarely do what they are told. Instead, they do what they feel compelled to do. The greatest persuaders in history understood this secret. They knew that influence is not about forcing others. It is about creating conditions where people willingly choose the direction you desire. The journey begins with a simple realization. Human beings crave freedom more than almost anything else. The moment someone feels controlled, resistance appears. It may be silent or visible, but it always exists. Tell a person they must do something, and part of them immediately wants to prove they do not have to. This is why direct pressure often fails. Reverse influence succeeds because it removes pressure. Instead of pushing, it pulls. Instead of demanding, it invites. The first law teaches that people are drawn toward ideas they believe they discovered themselves. Imagine planting a seed rather than forcing a tree to grow. When an individual feels ownership over an idea, their commitment becomes powerful. They defend it, nurture it, and act upon it. Great persuaders never rush to provide answers. They ask questions that guide others toward their own conclusions. In that moment, influence becomes effortless because the person believes the decision is entirely theirs. The second law reveals the immense power of curiosity. Human beings cannot resist unanswered questions. The mind naturally seeks completion. When information is partially hidden, curiosity grows stronger. This is why mystery captures attention. It creates an emotional tension that demands resolution. Skilled influencers understand that revealing everything at once weakens interest. By leaving space for imagination, they invite people to lean forward rather than turn away. As the audiobook continues, it explores a profound reality about emotions. Most people believe they make rational decisions. Yet emotion drives action while logic merely justifies it afterward. Think about major purchases, career changes, relationships, and life choices. Rarely are these decisions made purely through analysis. They emerge from feelings: hope, fear, excitement, pride, belonging, or desire. Effective persuasion begins by understanding emotional needs rather than presenting endless facts. One of the most fascinating lessons involves the principle of contrast. Human perception depends on comparison. A warm room feels hot after standing in freezing weather. A reasonable offer appears extraordinary after hearing an outrageous one. Persuaders understand that value is rarely absolute. It is relative. By changing the frame of comparison, they can dramatically alter perception. What seems impossible today may feel completely achievable tomorrow when viewed against a different reference point. The audiobook then explores the importance of social proof. Human beings are social creatures. Throughout history, survival often depended on following the group. Even today, people unconsciously look to others for guidance. When uncertainty exists, they observe what everyone else is doing. This is why testimonials, reviews, popularity, and community support hold such influence. Seeing others embrace an idea creates safety. It reduces fear and encourages action. But influence becomes even more powerful when combined with scarcity. People value what appears limited. Opportunities seem more attractive when they might disappear. Time-sensitive possibilities create urgency because humans fear loss more than they appreciate gain. A rare opportunity triggers emotional responses that abundance cannot match. Scarcity transforms hesitation into action. It reminds us that waiting often carries its own cost. As the narrative deepens, the book examines the remarkable impact of listening. Many people assume persuasion is about speaking. Yet the greatest influencers are exceptional listeners. When individuals feel heard, understood, and respected, their defenses lower. Trust begins to form. Listening communicates value. It tells another person that their thoughts matter. Once trust exists, influence becomes natural because people are more open to ideas from those who genuinely understand them. Another law focuses on identity. Human beings consistently act in ways that align with how they see themselves. A person who views themselves as disciplined seeks behaviors that confirm that identity. Someone who sees themselves as generous wants opportunities to demonstrate generosity. Successful persuasion connects desired actions with existing identities. Instead of convincing people to become someone new, it helps them express who they already believe they are. The audiobook repeatedly emphasizes that trust is the foundation of all influence. Without trust, even brilliant arguments fail. With trust, simple suggestions can inspire action. Trust grows through consistency, honesty, and reliability. Cannot be manufactured overnight. It develops gradually through repeated experiences. Every interaction either strengthens or weakens it. In a world overflowing with information, trust has become one of the most valuable currencies available. The next lesson explores the power of vulnerability. Many assume influence requires projecting perfection. Surprisingly, the opposite is often true. People connect with authenticity. Small imperfections make individuals appear more relatable and human. Vulnerability creates emotional bridges because it demonstrates courage and honesty. When people see genuine humanity, they become more willing to engage, trust, and follow. One of the most emotional sections discusses the human desire for significance. Every person wants to feel important. They want their existence to matter. They want recognition, appreciation, and respect. Persuaders who understand this need unlock extraordinary influence. Instead of focusing solely on themselves, they help others feel valued. They recognize contributions, celebrate achievements, and acknowledge strengths. This simple act creates deep emotional connections. The audiobook also reveals the hidden power of anticipation. Sometimes the expectation of an experience generates more excitement than the experience itself. Anticipation fuels motivation, keeps people engaged and emotionally invested. Great storytellers, leaders, and marketers understand how to create anticipation. They paint vivid pictures of future possibilities. They allow imagination to work on their behalf. The result is desire that grows stronger over time. As the journey continues, fear emerges as one of the most influential emotions in human behavior. Fear can motivate action, but it must be handled carefully. Excessive fear creates paralysis. Moderate fear creates movement. Effective persuasion does not simply highlight problems. It offers hope alongside concern. People need both awareness of risk and confidence in a solution. Without hope, fear becomes overwhelming. Without risk, motivation disappears. The book then introduces the principle of reciprocity. Human beings naturally feel compelled to return kindness. When someone provides value without immediately asking for anything in return, a subtle psychological bond forms. Genuine generosity creates goodwill. It establishes positive emotional momentum. Over time, people become more receptive because they feel respected rather than manipulated. One of the most insightful laws centers on storytelling. Facts inform, but stories transform. Stories bypass resistance because they engage emotions and imagination simultaneously. A compelling story allows listeners to experience an idea rather than merely hear about it. They see themselves within the narrative. They feel the emotions of the characters. They remember the message long after statistics have been forgotten. The audiobook repeatedly returns to a central theme. Influence is strongest when it feels invisible. Overt attempts to persuade often trigger resistance. Subtle influence works because it respects autonomy. It creates environments where choices emerge naturally. People want freedom. They want dignity. They want to believe they are directing their own lives. Reverse influence succeeds because it aligns with these desires rather than fighting against them. Toward the end, the author explores the importance of patience. Many people sabotage influence by seeking immediate results. Human beings rarely change instantly. Beliefs develop over time. Trust grows gradually. Relationships deepen through repeated interactions. Effective persuaders understand that influence is a long game. They focus on consistent actions rather than quick victories. They understand that small shifts eventually create major transformations. The final law may be the most powerful of all. It teaches that the greatest influence comes from becoming an example rather than delivering instructions. People watch far more than they listen. Actions possess credibility that words can never achieve. A leader who demonstrates integrity inspires trust. A teacher who embodies wisdom inspires learning. A parent who models discipline inspires responsibility. Influence reaches its highest form when behavior becomes the message. As the audiobook concludes, a profound realization emerges. Human persuasion is not about control. It is not about manipulation or domination. At its best, influence is about understanding people deeply enough to help them move toward meaningful decisions. It is about recognizing emotions, respecting freedom, and building trust. The strongest persuaders do not force others down a path. They illuminate possibilities and allow people to walk willingly. The ultimate lesson of reverse influence, 15 Laws of Human Persuasion, is that every human interaction contains the potential for influence. Every conversation shapes perceptions. Every action communicates values. Every moment offers an opportunity to build trust or lose it. The individuals who master these laws understand that persuasion is not a technique reserved for salespeople, politicians, or leaders. It is a life skill that affects relationships, careers, businesses, and personal growth. When used ethically, these principles create connection rather than conflict. They replace pressure with understanding. They transform resistance into cooperation. Most importantly, they remind us that true influence does not come from overpowering people. It comes from understanding what moves the human heart. And when you learn to speak to the heart, the mind often follows naturally. The deeper message of the audiobook begins to unfold when we realize that persuasion is not only about changing other people. It is also about understanding ourselves. Every day we are influenced by advertisements, social media, friends, family members, leaders, and countless unseen forces. Most of these influences operate quietly beneath our awareness. The more we understand the laws of persuasion, the more conscious we become of the decisions shaping our lives. The author explains that human beings are emotional storytellers living in a world they believe is logical. We often create narratives to explain our actions after decisions have already been made. Someone buys an expensive car because it makes them feel successful, then later justifies the purchase with practical reasons. Another person chooses a career because it feels meaningful, then constructs logical arguments to support the decision. This pattern exists everywhere. Understanding it allows us to communicate with people in a way that resonates with their deepest motivations. One particularly moving lesson focuses on the power of belonging. Throughout history, survival depended on being part of a tribe. Rejection could mean danger. Acceptance could mean safety. Although modern society has changed dramatically, the emotional need remains the same. People want to feel connected. They want to know they matter to a group larger than themselves. The strongest influencers understand this longing. They create communities, movements, and shared identities that give people a sense of purpose and connection. The audiobook describes how some of the world's most successful leaders never began by talking about products, policies, or profits. They began by talking about values. Values create emotional unity. They answer a fundamental question that exists within every human heart. Where do I belong? When people feel connected to a mission, persuasion becomes much easier because actions are no longer viewed as obligations. They become expressions of identity and purpose. Another powerful concept is the importance of timing. Even the best message can fail if delivered at the wrong moment. Human beings are influenced by their emotional state. A person overwhelmed by stress processes information differently than someone who feels calm and confident. Great persuaders understand that timing often matters more than wording. They recognize moments when minds are open and emotions are receptive. The author shares examples showing how patience can dramatically increase influence. Instead of forcing conversations, Effective communicators wait for opportunities. They understand that readiness cannot be rushed. Seeds planted today may not grow until weeks, months, or even years later. Influence often works invisibly beneath the surface before results finally appear. As the journey continues, the audiobook explores one of the most overlooked aspects of persuasion: certainty. People are naturally attracted to confidence. In uncertain situations, individuals look for signals that provide direction. Confidence creates emotional reassurance. However, there is a crucial difference between genuine confidence and arrogance. Genuine confidence comes from preparation, experience, and clarity. Arrogance comes from ego. One inspires trust. The other creates resistance. The author explains that certainty is contagious. When someone speaks with calm conviction, others begin to feel more secure. This principle appears in leadership, business, relationships, and everyday conversations. People are not always persuaded by who has the strongest argument. Often, they are persuaded by who communicates with the greatest clarity and belief. The audiobook then moves into the fascinating world of perception. Reality is important, but perception often determines behavior. Two people can experience the same event and interpret it completely differently. Their beliefs, experiences, fears, and expectations shape what they see. Persuasion, therefore, requires understanding how people perceive the world rather than assuming everyone sees reality in the same way. This lesson encourages empathy. Instead of asking, "Why don't they understand me?" effective communicators ask, "How does the world look from their perspective?" This shift changes everything. Empathy dissolves barriers. It allows influence to emerge from understanding rather than confrontation. One of the most emotional sections discusses the danger of ego in persuasion. The desire to win arguments often destroys opportunities to create understanding. Many people become so focused on proving they are right that they stop listening. As a result, conversations become battles instead of bridges. The author argues that true influence is rarely achieved through victory. It is achieved through connection. People remember how they felt during a conversation long after they forget specific words. If they feel respected, they remain open. If they feel attacked, they become defensive. Therefore, influence requires humility. It requires the willingness to understand before seeking to be understood. The audiobook also explores the role of consistency in human behavior. Once people publicly commit to an idea, they feel psychological pressure to remain consistent with that commitment. This is why small agreements can lead to larger actions over time. A simple decision today often becomes the foundation for a bigger decision tomorrow. However, the author emphasizes that this principle should be used ethically. The purpose of influence is not exploitation. It is helping people move toward decisions that align with their goals, values, and aspirations. Ethical persuasion creates mutual benefit. Manipulation creates one-sided gain. Although the techniques may appear similar on the surface, their intentions and outcomes are very different. As the final chapters approach, the audiobook delivers perhaps its most profound insight. Every human being is searching for meaning. Beneath desires for money, success, recognition, and comfort lies a deeper longing to feel that life matters. Persuasion becomes powerful when it connects actions to meaning. People will work harder, sacrifice more, and remain committed longer when they believe their efforts serve a purpose larger than themselves. The author illustrates how extraordinary movements throughout history were built not merely on logic but on vision. Vision gives people something to believe in. It transforms ordinary actions into meaningful contributions. It turns followers into believers. It turns customers into advocates. It turns individuals into communities. Near the conclusion, the audiobook returns to the concept of reverse influence. The greatest persuaders do not chase people. They attract them. They do not force compliance. They inspire commitment. They do not rely on pressure. They rely on trust. This distinction changes everything. Imagine a magnet instead of a hammer. A hammer uses force. A magnet creates attraction. Most people spend their lives trying to persuade through force. They argue harder, push stronger, and demand more. Yet, the most influential individuals focus on becoming magnetic. They cultivate character, credibility, empathy, and understanding. As a result, people naturally gravitate toward them. The final message is both simple and powerful. Influence is not something you do to people. It is something you create with people. It emerges from trust, understanding, authenticity, and emotional connection. The strongest persuaders are not necessarily the loudest voices in the room. Often they are the calmest, the most attentive, and the most genuine. When the audiobook ends, the listener is left with a new perspective on human behavior. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to build trust. Every conversation becomes a chance to create understanding. Every relationship becomes a reminder that influence begins not with speaking, but with listening. Not with controlling, but with connecting. Not with force, but with respect. And perhaps that is the greatest law of all. People may forget your arguments. They may forget your advice. They may even forget your achievements. But they will never forget how you made them feel. The heart remembers what the mind sometimes forgets. Those who understand this truth possess a form of influence far more powerful than persuasion alone. They possess the ability to inspire lasting change in the lives of others, and in doing so, transform their own lives as well.